I'm Tom Downey. Follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. Send me any questions you've got as well, because that brings us to today's Cowboys mailbag, a Sunday staple here. A lot of Twitter questions this week, so I appreciate those. Start things off here with Sandman asking about Linehan's insecurity and if he's sullying Dez's rep towards other teams. I don't know if Linehan's being that petty and going out of his way to make sure Dez does not get another job, but Linehan was not pleased about what Dez had to say. I think Linehan's desire to move on from Dez Bryant is a big reason why that Dez is no longer with the Dallas Cowboys. All right, Austin on Twitter is asking about Blake Jarwin and if he can block. I'm not overly concerned about Jarwin's blocking. He's not going to be a Jason Witten in his prime as a blocker. I'm not expecting that of him. But despite what Byron Jones has said, Blake Jarwin was not a pass-catching threat at Oklahoma State. I think Jones said he had 70 or 80 balls in 1 year. He had 41 for his career. So he was more of an H-back almost at times for Oklahoma State. So he can block. He's not going to be an elite blocker, but he can hold up. I am much less worried about Jarwin's blocking than I am against Rico Gathers. All right, next up, Frank Van Sickle says, LVE, what's going on with him? Well, Vander Esch is back in camp, thankfully, after missing minicamp and most of OTAs with an ankle injury. He's looked fine. Nothing earth-shattering quite yet, but he looks kind of like what the guys we thought the Cowboys were getting. Very immensely talented, athletic, but does still need a little bit of work overall. So, folks, let me know how many tackles you think Leighton Vander Esch will have this year at linebacker. Will it be just 65, 75, 85? Let me know in the comments section. Sticking with some more here on the linebacking group, Fantasy Frank wants to know how I see the linebacker group shaking out. We'll bring up the depth chart. This is not what it currently is. This is what I think it will be, though, by, let's say, week 5 of the regular season with how the Cowboys use their base set. Jalen at the Sam, LVE at the Mike, Sean Lee at the weak side backer. As of right now, it's really Jalen on top of Vander Esch at middle linebacker, and Damian Wilson is the lead guy at strong side linebacker. But remember, the Cowboys are going to use a ton of nickel. So it's going to be Sean Lee and then either Jalen Smith, who I think, again, right now is above Leighton Vander Esch, because Smith has also looked pretty darn good so far in the camp. But I think by the end of the year, this is the Cowboys' base set because you want to get your 3 best linebackers on the field, right? I think that makes sense. All right, Paulie Sleepers asks about Tavon Austin, saying he's a new running back, but he's lined up everywhere but the backfield and wants to clarify it sounds like a failure in terms of an experiment. So don't get caught up in the position for Tavon Austin. The Cowboys called him a web back, and many people meant him at halfback. He is going to play Lance Dunbar / Lucky Whitehead role. He is going to be a weapon. I'm going to keep listing him as an athlete. He hasn't really lined up at back in camp. That's okay. He's going to get a lot of passes. He's going to get some jet sweeps as well. So don't worry about the position for Tavon Austin. It's all about the usage and how the Cowboys use him. They want to get him the ball because he is so dynamic with the ball in his hands. It's not going to be the 12, 24 touches a game that the Cowboys have said they're going to get him. It's not going to be anywhere near that high. 12 is probably going to be the max for any one game. So it's not a failure yet, but I'm not hyping up Tavon as the guy that was taken, top 10 overall, because I don't think he's going to be that type of player ever in the NFL, but he can be a good chess piece if Linehan tries to use him right. All right, 2 questions here about the receiving core. First one from Cameron. He predicts Gallup, Terrence, and then Hearns. And then Resurgent wants me to rank the emerging pecking order among the receivers. So we'll do it. I think the depth chart that I had earlier is still pretty accurate. So we'll rank them from wide receiver 1 to 2. In terms of catches, Cole's your top guy. In terms of maybe yards or TDs, maybe Hearns surpasses him. I think Gallup right now is 3rd because T will miss some time, and Gallup a little bit up and down as well, but overall, very talented receiver. I'll list Tavon at 5 because I think he's not going to get that much work early on. I think they're going to try and get him the ball in creative plays, but not a true standard, typical wide receiver. Then it's Deontay Thompson, and then I'm going to put Lance Lenoir ahead of Noah Brown. And Lenoir is a guy I think that's being a bit underrated by some. I think he has a good chemistry with Dak Prescott. Noah Brown also missed some time early in camp, so that, 6 through 8 spot is a real battle right now. But folks, let me know who you think will have the most yards among wide receivers this year for the Dallas Cowboys. Is it Beasley, Hearns, Gallup, or do you still believe in T. Will? All right, back to Sandman here, asking about the defensive tackle. He asks, do we have enough to slow down what will indeed be a run-heavy NFC? Sandman, I agree. I'm kind of concerned by it. So we'll leave David Irving off this chapter because he's suspended. Malik Collins, when he comes back from his injury, Jihad Ward, Dayton Jones, and then Brian Price, Antoine Woods, and Richard Ash. Those last 3 names kind of bordering on just the guy. So I am concerned about it. I know that the linebacking, the ends, and the secondary will help make up for what I consider to be a rather weak defensive tackle depth chart, but the Cowboys don't seem as convinced as I am. All right, up to Sloan now. He says, after camp highlights, this is their problem at DT. I don't mind trading for one, but it would probably end up being a Brian Price type move, a lesser guy that's going to get cut that can come in and provide hopefully some run-stopping defense there. So I'm not in love with getting a DT at the moment. I do think, though, that they need one because there's no one out there beyond Jonathan Higgins. I want him. I'm typing in yes because I think they should go sign him. But the Cowboys so far have shown no interest in doing so. Perhaps it's because they like a guy named Antwan Woods. And Andrew asks, he's heard Woods has been doing well. What are his chances of making the roster? Well, Woods' main competition is Brian Price. I also think has done pretty well, has shown some ability. Woods had a little bit of a scuffle earlier this week at camp, which I love the fieriness from Woods there. He is battling for a spot on the roster as a one technique. And here's the thing. You're going to take Malik Collins. You're going to take Jihad Ward. You're going to take Dayton Jones. Those are probably your three guys at DT. You got room for one, maybe two, but probably not more given your depth at defensive end. So it's Woods and Price for one spot. I think I'd lean towards Brian Price for now, but Antwan Woods does have a chance to make this roster. All right, next up from Film Productions, he asks, who is being overlooked the most on both sides of the ball? First off, great question. I love this one. We'll start off on the offensive side, Lance Lenoir. And I was pretty low on Lenoir last year. I didn't love what I saw, but he worked on the practice squad, and the team likes him a little bit more than I think they're trying to let on right now. And Lenoir and Prescott do have some solid chemistry. The team likes him as well. He is a sleeper, I think, to make the roster as the number 6 or maybe even number 7 wide receiver this year. As for defense, it's Dayton Jones. He made some nice impact plays at times last year, showed that ability as a DT after being an edge guy coming out of UCLA. He is going to play, likely barring he gets hurt, a key role earlier this year with Collins still hurt and David Irving suspended. But folks, let me know who you think is the most overlooked player on the Cowboys roster. Any name you guys want, let me know in the comment section. I'll try and chime in with my thoughts on them as well. Cameron asks about a potential trade for Jourdan Lewis, given that Anthony Brown continues to start over him this year in terms of nickel corners. I hate the idea of trading away Jourdan Lewis, but he is undersized. He does not fit the normal thresholds, be it height or arm length, of a Chris Richard corner. I'm very surprised he is stuck behind Anthony Brown at nickel for one big reason in terms of A, the talent level, but as for a trade, I hate it. You need as many talented corners as you can have. I hate the idea of Anthony Brown being your number 3 and Charvarius Ward or Duke Thompson being your number 4. That is too thin at cornerback. Keep Jourdan Lewis, and I think eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later, make him into your nickel corner for the Cowboys. All right, Jordan wants to know that Byron Jones got voted best player at camp, and will that translate into the league? I hope it does, but look, Byron's looked great. It's a lot different going up against Terrence Williams and Hearns and Cole and Gallup as opposed to going up against Julio Jones and T.Y. Hilton and Odell Beckham and DeAndre Hopkins and Doug Baldwin, Mike Evans, Alshon Jeffrey. So I think talent and physical-wise in terms of athletic attributes, he can hold up against those guys, but he's going to be in for a big change once he gets to week 1 of the regular season when he's matching up against those talented guys. So I have my high hopes about Byron Jones. I think he can be a number 1 cornerback, but I still kind of want to see it on the field in a game setting as opposed to just him doing well against what is in reality a lesser wide receiver core for the Cowboys. All right, Kenyatta asks about bringing in a veteran safety and a veteran tight end. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the safeties have signed already. Kenny Vaccaro is gone. Trey Boston, the Cowboys will not sign Eric Reed. That is not going to happen. I wouldn't mind a Quentin Demps, but I am surprised they have not signed a veteran safety. I want one badly. Cowboys not so much interest as for tight ends. I don't think they really need one. I think they're going to roll with the guys that they have, Schultz and Swaim and Jarwin and Rico, and let those guys compete, and then maybe trade for somebody if they have to near the end of the preseason. All right, Michael Ramos asks, out of these 2 players, who is least likely to make the 53-man roster? In order, I think Lance and Rico are near the top because I think both those guys have a real chance to make it. So that kind of leaves Darius Jackson. And for Jackson, it's mostly a numbers game. There's Zeke Elliott. There's Rod Smith. There's 7th-round pick Bo Scarborough. I like what he brings to the Cowboys. I think they keep him, and I think Darius Jackson, then because Tavon can also play halfback, gets left out as the team's number 4 back. Maybe he sticks around on the practice squad again next year, but I think it's Zeke, Rod, and Scarborough here for the Dallas Cowboys. Those end up being your top 3 guys. As a result, Darius Jackson gets left out. All right, Sandman wants to know, what's the touch breakdown going to be? Don't forget Jamizo Wallace, he points out, and Tavon Austin. So in reality, the focal point will be feeding Zeke. He is going to get a ridiculous amount of touches for the Cowboys this year. Then it's a breakdown of the wide receivers. Hearns and Gallup and T. Will and Cole, they will all get some of their touches. We'll bring up that offensive weaponry depth chart here as well. And then Blake Jarwin is your tight end. I don't think there's going to be a lot of touches for Blake Jarwin. So there will be enough to go around because, frankly, none of those guys beyond Zeke are absolutely deserving of a wide receiver depth chart here for the Cowboys. So I'm not overly concerned about breaking up those touches if I'm the Cowboys. Zeke's going to get fed. Everybody else is a secondary concern. And then one final question here from Sandman asks about Dale Hanson's remarks about Jerry Jones. Look, as Dale often is, he's pretty accurate again here. I think that we get way too caught up into this. It shouldn't be an issue. And like Dale said, you're going to allow Greg Hardy to play for your team, but you're not going to let someone who kneels for the national anthem. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's just me. All right, folks, I'm Tom Downey. Go follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney for more Cowboys coverage. And until then, we'll see you next time.